I call this meeting to order. We're all here except for Molly. Hopefully she'll be rolling in any second. We start off with public comment, and there is none, but I just wanted to welcome Molly Freiberger back to the meeting. Thanks for joining us, Molly. Okay, approval of the last meeting's minutes. Everyone should have gotten this in advance. Any suggested amendments?
Oh, you know, small things. Small, where I comment, just instead of also to keep in mind of setback plantings, I don't know, setback plantings particularly.
Take out the of?
Yeah, and
okay.
Also I did mention that 200 trees in number one would be overwhelming the other projects. So it could say that I didn't think it was practical to plant 200 trees.
Yeah, I think you said it wouldn't be practical to plant 290, which was the grand total.
Right, and 200 are in the first item.
Okay.
Problem.
So you were specifically referring to the first item?
Yes, that was a problem because it's made the math not work.
Okay.
I think it should just be in there.
Terry, did you get that, or will you get that next time?
I'll get it.
Okay.
Rich, do you want the lights on?
No, you can have the lights on.
Hi, Molly. We're just reviewing minutes right now.
It's going to be easier, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Well, when you go to your part,
You
I'll
start the
turn
auto.
off.
Sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, really? They can't see.
Thank you, Derek. Hi, Sue. Feel free to pull up a chair.
I will, thank you. Thank you, Terry. Sorry. Thank you, Todd.
Do we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I'll move to accept
Okay.
the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Staying? Okay. Minutes are accepted as amended. Review of to-do list. Well, some of your to-do list is on the minutes that you just reviewed, and others, of course, are on the Google spreadsheet that we regularly update. A reminder to everyone to please bring laptops to the meeting, because this would be a good time for you to just go on there and go, oh, right, 3 months ago I was asked to do this, and it's fallen from my radar, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Is it a hard thing for folks to bring their laptops? Is it a pain?
Yes.
Tablet?
I could read that. With phones.
I usually try to check it before.
Okay.
All
right.
I just have this really heavy, and I have it from today.
All right.
This really heavy laptop.
Okay, so noted that a laptop is not required, but some kind of electronic device that allows you to access the Google spreadsheet, or if you are visiting it right before the meeting. That feels like a reasonable thing.
I usually try to do that.
Okay. Chair report. Per my to-do list, I notified Conway School that we weren't going to move forward with their proposal to hire them to put together a planting plan. And it was well received and, nice gestures on the other end. I also wanted to report that I visited with the publisher of the Gazette. This was as part of the conversation about whether we could plant American chestnut trees there. It followed a phone call with him in which the initial reaction was negative. And so he invited me to come down and have a in-person conversation with him about trees at that site. It gave me the opportunity to zoom out a little bit, go look at the site and really see its potential, which is actually tremendous for a downtown site. And also to see that 3 out of 4 of their apple trees are terminal or dead. And that it's just an incredible high traffic area next to an environmental justice community, and just tremendous potential for uplifting that gateway. So I ended up bringing my laptop and giving him basically a little dog and pony show of the broader picture of what we're trying to achieve. Lots of images of urban transformations of tree-lined streets. I zoomed in using my tree keeper of that particular area of the city so you could see how devoid it is of trees. And I think that was a much better approach than just having a phone conversation. And so what I also realized is that I'm no longer convinced that American chestnut trees are actually the best trees for that location. For one thing, they're eventually going to drop really, prickly chestnuts. And if we want them any near a sidewalk, that can be a little problematic. But he ended up listening well, and what he invited us to do was to make a formal proposal of how we could use that site. There is just an expansive lawn where you could potentially have 2 rows of trees, one run right at the sidewalk, one helping to shade their parking area, and then on the other side of the sidewalk there's an enormous tree belt. It has a dip, and I don't know. It was interesting for me when I went to what? It's a bioswale, but can trees not be planted in a bioswale?
No.
Really?
They have to be left open. That's the way that one was designed.
Okay, all more compelling than for the trees to be on the Gazette side of that sidewalk. So I enthusiastically accepted his offer for us to examine the site carefully, and I tried to get some parameters from him, and I asked him if he would consider, since there's still one surviving apple tree, whether we could consider just cutting it all down and starting fresh. And he said, well, yes, I assume that if you present something, it would kind of be a unified plan. So we can discuss what that might look like, but I felt like it ended up going from a not so great start of a conversation to a potentially really positive one. And the more I look at that site, the more I feel like there's just huge potential for a transformation. So that's my chair report. I have nothing else to report at this point.
Okay. Just want to let you know that we have a public shade tree hearing. We had to reschedule a public shade tree hearing for a single American elm, 2.5-inch DBH at Roberts Meadow Reservoir. In regards to the construction project to repair the lower Roberts Meadow Reservoir spillway, which is caving in.
Can you orient us where this is?
Sure.
Musanti Beach?
Yeah. Yes, have you been there?
Musanti Beach.
Yes, it's Musanti Beach. It's on the side. It's the only public shade tree that's in the right-of-way that has to be removed.
And it's an American elm?
Slippery elm. Looks like an American elm.
2.5-inch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, so tiny, so it was just recently planted?
Yep. No, it wasn't planted. It's volunteer. But it's still considered a public shade tree.
Yeah.
So we have to remove it.
Okay.
And it probably wouldn't make it more than 5 years, possibly.
You mean if we tried to transplant it? Not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Okay.
So that is next November 13th, Monday at 5 p.m. If anybody's interested in going.
What's the reason it would be taken down?
Because the trees, there are other trees that are on, so most of that land, the trees are being removed on is public water supply or watershed land. It's not recreation land. So the MGO Chapter 37 laws don't apply to this recreation property would be different because I have, the commission has given me the power to protect the trees in the city parks. And it's being removed because the other trees that are there that are along that embankment have to be taken as well in order for them to regrade the embankment and add giant boulders part the size of this table to keep the waterway from, what's happened is the waterway moved to the left and it's probably eaten about 100 feet of banking, and all kinds of trees have fallen in there from the other side of the spillway. So in order to get it back to the original alignment, they have to reconfigure the whole area. So it's kind of a big project, and a lot of trees were removed, unfortunately, but we're working on getting some trees planted back in those locations. I don't think we'll have the mature stand that was there, but hopefully we'll have something instead of nothing.
Okay. So I take it your assessment is that this is a necessary removal?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, unfortunate, but necessary. It's in a clump of trees that's going to have to be removed, a lot of small trees, and most of them are on, like I said, on watershed property, except for that one. So, let's see, what else do I have? So we had a little storm damage over the Sunday night into Monday. We lost 2 large trees, one on the end of Sumner Avenue, which fell on a brand new car. And we lost another tree up on Glendale Road by the landfill by Brisson Drive that fell across the road and got hung up in the utility wires. And then a bunch of other smaller tree damage, but nothing like some of the other communities that have been out without power for days.
Yeah.
So we got lucky. Thank you for that email, Todd.
Which one?
The one, the bioswale one.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
We can research on that.
Yeah, it's okay. So the other thing I've been working on, I don't know if you want me to talk about this now briefly, or do you want to save this?
What,
It's just-
well, you know, because, let's see, yeah, we have time. Talk about it now. Why don't you spend about 10 minutes?
Okay, so what I've been doing in my spare time is this is our login page for Treekeeper. So this is Treekeeper 8. This is the beta trial, the beta phase of Treekeeper 8. We presently have a full subscription to Treekeeper 7, which is basically the driving force behind this. So this is definitely, this is a really nice updated, in my opinion, more user-friendly. Although some folks would disagree with me, however, said they also don't see the side that I work on, so it's actually been making my life a lot easier. So what I've done is, every one of these little locations here represents a public shade tree, so I can click on any one of these, and it might be a little slow, so this is connected to the city's web. Vacant site, small, large, medium, pin oak.
Rich, I'm on Treekeeper and I don't see the yellow, are those new?
Those are, so if you have to go over to here, to the search bar.
Okay.
Down here. So I'll back up a little bit.
Right.
So the yellow spaces here, so all the green are all the trees that are in our inventory, including the 2,000 planting vacancies. You have a set of quick filters on My Treekeeper, which is the public version, which is similar to this interface. This interface does a lot more than that one. And you have this little leaf over here. If you click on that leaf, what happens is it populates, it changes the colors of the locations where there have been trees planted in 2017. So these were all generated, some of these places are setbacks, some of these are actually trees that were part of the 2,000 planting locations. And some of them were other locations that we found. So
some of the green ones were existing in the canopy that we got from the tree.
Yes, all of the green ones are existing, with the exception of the 200 and some odd trees I've added since then. So here is this little location right here. Close that. This location right here, which is a cherry. This tells you all the information of the site ID, DBH, what needs to be done to it, the location of the ward, change date, Dan Band. So this one, let's see, when was this one? There's probably no work to go with this one.
So the yellow dots are 2017.
Yep.
And you can remove all the others to make it clearer where they are, because right now you can't really see them.
No, you cannot remove all the others. That's one of the things that I don't like about this.
I've been able to.
You remove them. Well, that's good. I have not.
I can show you how.
There you go. See, like more about it.
I'm pretty sure if you go here,
There,
and then you unclick this.
and it's just gonna, look at that. Haven't even done that yet. So that gives you an overview of about 95 locations where we've planted trees, of where the locations are. So when you're deciding how you want locations to plant trees for 2018, this could be part of what the tools that you use. So some of these locations, this is a sweet gum that was planted on Valley Street, I believe. No, sorry, Bridge Street. Google has not updated their mapping system yet, so next year you'll see, this is not populating for whatever reason, you'll actually be able to see the street tree planted. These are old, this is from like 2015. Some of the imagery is new, some of it's not. So basically what I ended up doing is, in order to create these locations, I used existing vacant sites, and I also used, I had to recreate, or I had to create new sites, which is kind of a lengthy process. So basically what I end up doing is, I have to go back here. Here, and then click on this add tool. And we can just add a location anywhere. So in adding a site, there's all this data that has to be inputted into here. So I don't know what the address is because I'm not zoomed into it, but you have to fill out all this information. So your address number, your street number, which is all populated already based upon the inventory. No Suffolk, no side, no on-street. Then it asks you a bunch of other questions. Is it multi-stemmed? What are the observations? So when you're creating a vacant site, you basically put zip in here. There's nothing in here except when you get down to, they ask you for the area, which is a ward. They'll ask you for a growing space, which will, you have the island, medium, natural, open, restricted. It's not gonna let me down. And then growing space size. So Davey used a system that I am not familiar with. So I basically, the growing space sizes is 1 to 10. 1 being smallest, 5 being medium, 10 being largest.
And what, do you know what those mean?
For me, they mean size of the actual square footage of the actual space, plus including any overhead utilities, plus tree belt size. So Davey did theirs in such a way that I have not been able to really, I owe them an email because I have asked them questions about it, because I want to make it uniform, so I can do a global edit eventually once I figure out how they did their system, because there's no rhyme to reason to it, because you'll go and look at two large sites, and they'll have different growing space sizes, which I don't understand the way they did it. So that's one thing that's a little bit of a mystery to me. But species list, so that would be populated as a vacant site, which would be small, medium, large. This would be DBH would be 0. Primary maintenance need would be plant a tree. And then you would continue to scroll down. NA, there's no risk. You would say overhead utilities if there were any to be found, and then the rest of the risk rating is going to be zip, and then you hit submit, and then you've created a vacant site. Yes, I do. So then you actually go to, I'll use this one as an example. So say this was a vacant site, this wasn't here. What you would end up doing is you would go to the work, you would create a work record. So up here, this is how every vacant site looks, except this actually is a tree that's already been populated. And it has the actual species, the site, species, and risk information is under this tree heading. The caller would be if this was going to be turned into a work order, if this was an existing tree, you enter the data, the caller would call in and enter the information of what they're requesting, service request, emergency work, tree trimming. And then from there you'd create a work record. So if I wanted to create a work record for this tree, or a vacant site, you just hit add. And you would have, this would be, work species would be vacant site, be 0 dBH, there'd be condition would be NA, project would be exactly what you see here, everything else would be the same. So then what you would do is, the way that I capture those yellow dots is I click down on this box, and tree planting 2017. I haven't made a work order for these yet, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I hit plant a tree. Priority is always request date would be today. Scheduled date would be, let's say the 4th. Completion date not done, and this is where I would put the hours. That's another thing I've got to work on too. I've been adding, basically I'll just select one person, and then you can put the time. I should give an hour. Actually, that's better than calculate. And then your comments would be whatever you want it to be. I put a tree, plant a tree in the tree belt, or plant a tree as a setback tree, and then you hit submit. And what will end up happening is it should create a work record, which I will erase afterwards, because this is not really a work record for this tree, because we're not doing this work here, but it's just an example. So this is how I would capture all this information. If I was doing this as a regular tree that already exists, then I would not be a project, it would be no project, and then the work type would be either tree removal, tree trimming, young tree train. And so you can make millions of work records for one tree. And so you have a complete record of everything you've done from the very beginning. And all that is captured here in an archive. So as you take a vacant site and you turn it into a planted tree, and then 10 years down the road you go and you remove the tree and you create a stump, and then after a year or two you decide to plant another tree there, that vacant site stays as that original location, and it just has all this archived information. So eventually you'll be able to look up here. They have archive. Which tells you everything that's happened to this location, and who was last changed by, and what was the last item that was done to it. And as you do more work to the tree, or as the tree morphs into different things, the location changes, then that'll all be captured in here.
Where does the work orders go? Like, do you have to print those out now?
Well, presently what I do is the work orders get printed out and they can hand it to Tony. And one of the things that I've decided not to do at the moment is to make individual work orders to plant all these trees, because it's really, I think it's too much. I think I'm going to do a global edit in the end and just make one giant work order. So it has one number, and you can reference it. And you could also, this is another way to call this up, is by referencing the one work order, or by the tree planting for 2017. And then going forward, I think we should probably continue to use different icons for quick filters, so we actually can quickly go back and see what years in past we've done what work to what trees for tree plantings, you know. So that's kind of what I've been messing around with for the last, and I kind of do this on all, when I'm not interrupted. It takes a little bit of time and a little bit of, it takes a little bit of knowledge. One of the things that I've recognized about this is that I can do this from my desk a lot of times, and what I do is I have, Rob sends me all the photographs of where all the trees are going to be planted. He stakes them, or I stake them. We have to take photographs in order to manufacture a trench permit, because in order to dig in city property, every tree location has to have a trench permit. Trench permits get filed, dig safe gets called, water, sewer, Columbia Gas, Berkshire Gas, G4S, they all come out and make marks to make sure we're not planning on something that's their location. Then I take that information and I put that information in Treekeeper as a location if it doesn't already exist. If the vacant location is already there, then I end up changing that to a work record to plant a tree, 2017, and then when the actual tree gets planted, I go back in and I enter the information as the tree being planted on this date by whom, and there it is. So I'm not done. We obviously have probably about another 100 trees to go. But I did try to capture most of them on South Street. So, this is gonna be, I see, very goofy up. So we do this.
We get it.
Yeah, so basically, that's the populace of what South Street looks like.
Like election night on CNN.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, huh? It's actually a lot slower though. CNN's got better tools, but it sort of gives you an idea of
Yeah.
where we've been and what we're up to. And again, this is a beta phase, so the tree keeper, my tree keeper that you're using works probably better than this does because they worked all the bugs out of it.
Oh.
It's pretty slow and it's pretty buggy. It crashes a lot.
This
You have to
one
refresh
doesn't
it.
crash. This one is not as slow. It just has weird little quirky little things like that giant search that I did here. I can print a work order for all of these from this little area over here. And sometimes what happens, work orders for that. Yeah, so I can print a work order out of here, but sometimes it doesn't let me and it gets quirky and it makes me go back to Treekeeper 7. So every time there's an issue, I just email Davey and they seem to repair it pretty quickly.
Good.
So all this work, any time of issues we're having, they correct them all for nothing. Until this thing becomes live in a sense, or until we actually own it or have the rights to it in a sense, we are getting free technical support, which is really nice. So, anybody have any questions? I know it's like a really quick tutorial.
Yeah, about 3 minutes, folks, and then we're gonna.
Just a quick question, Rich. So, when I click on filter, I don't get the new tree icon, and I'm just wondering why.
I'll take a look at that after.
Okay.
I don't have an answer for you because it does come up on Google My Tree.
We saw it the last time you were
Yeah,
here.
unless they've done
new
something with it.
Yeah.
So is it, the thing that you're showing us is a new version, like a beta version that you're
Yes.
testing out for them?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
what
we
they-
don't have access to that version yet?
You have access to anything that I'm doing with My Tree Keeper. It's the same thing. The only thing you don't have access to is you don't have any editing rights. So it's not,
Okay.
it's,
So the stuff
it's
you
the
showed us
same
about,
thing.
about
It's-
vacant sites and adding a tree, we don't
Yeah.
have access to that, right?
no, one of the, that's correct. Oh, you do have access to it because you just go over here and you actually can run a query, you can run a search.
But we can't, we don't have the administrative rights to
Right.
add things.
You
Like, we
just-
can't add a vacant
That's-
site.
Yeah, so you can look, you can search.
So this beta version, is that what we have on my tree keeper too, that we have access to?
Yes, it's very
Okay.
similar to that, but it doesn't have all the it doesn't have all the ability that this one does.
Uh-huh.
So you can search sites,
Species.
you can search species, you can just go down to here where it says site ID. I'm sorry.
It's under
It is
species.
under species, vacant sites. That's
Yeah.
what it'll come up eventually. So you can, there's a lot of ways you can look for different things. I'm still learning, so. But it's been, I think, for me, I think it's been a good learning. I mean, it's really amazing because I have like 4 books in my office and I have a whole old spreadsheet and nobody knew what was the city tree and what wasn't. And I think having this is really just by far much better than the way we've operated for the last 25 years. So,
Quick question, will you track whether a tree was planted by volunteer or?
yeah, the only thing is that I have to see, that's one of the things that's hard to track because you don't know how many, I mean, it takes roughly, like one day we could have 2 volunteers, another day we could have 3. So I can actually create in the administrative rights, I can actually capture that, Tree Northampton volunteer 3, 2, and then I can click on it and it will just, as I apply a time to it, it'll say it took this long. So I can make all those edits after the fact, after I enter everything, but it would be helpful to when we're doing our Tree City USA, because the volunteer, when you're doing how much money you spent per capita, that's one of the things that's nice to capture. So you can do it.
Did we have one more question?
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, you're
Is this
welcome.
making your life easier?
Yes and no.
In the long run, yes.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, in the long run, yes. In the short term, I mean, it's just, it's the thing is that getting, it would be nice, I think the easiest thing would be helpful would be for me to be able to actually send the work orders to Tony via email, or Terry can send those things to me via email. Right now, we're still working half on paper, half on computers, so, or half on this database, so.
Okay, I know Molly Hale has to leave at 5, so I want to make sure that we get through the next 2, at least 3, ideally, agenda items before she goes. So we have Molly Freilischer with us, who's going to give us any updates in the state, if you have any that jump out that you think would be interested in. And also, I invited you here because you sent us a brochure on setbacks plannings as well as a little email. And we thought we'd ask about any grant opportunities we should know about, such as the this grant cycle. It's kind of jumped off our radar, and I'm realizing it's November. And I'm wondering if it's too late for us to throw a name in the hat. So anyway, there you go.
Okay, thank you. So a couple updates at the state level. We just had our tree steward training, and Jonathan from Northampton came, so Northampton is represented. One of the programs that was part of that was a session on diagnosing forest health problems, and we did something a little different. We had Nicole Kelleher from UCR Forest Health do a demo of hanging a trap for EAB. They actually injected a tree with emamectin benzoate and girdled a tree. So I don't know if anybody here went to the workshop at, what's the?
Lily Library, was it?
No.
Where was it?
What's it? The lake?
Oh,
Fitzgerald Lake.
Is that it? Which is the one that was the Methodist community?
Oh, Laurel.
Laurel Lake.
Laurel
Yeah.
Park.
Laurel Park.
So they did,
Right, Laurel Park.
they did a
right.
session there. But why I'm mentioning it here is because they do have purple traps if you wanted to monitor for emerald ash borer or do some sort of public program next summer related to that.
Who do you contact for that?
Ken Gooch.
Is anyone in the committee particularly interested in taking that on?
Maybe. It's interesting, I just don't know time-wise what it involves. All that.
Putting a trap up in a tree,
Yeah.
checking it every,
Once a month? How often do you go out?
it might be at the end of the season, I'm not sure. Maybe every 30 or 60 days.
Oh, it'd be interesting.
I mean, to check and make sure it's still up.
How do you get it up there?
She'll help. She has this giant slingshot.
Oh.
Very
I would do that, I
tall
would monitor
slingshot.
those, that'd be cool.
Okay,
Yeah,
Molly,
yeah.
great.
And if you wanted to girdle any trees to have a monitoring site.
There's
for
certain
that.
areas that you're interested in.
They're just looking for areas around the state where we don't know that we have emerald ash borer yet. So. The other thing we have our poster contest theme.
Oh,
My community, my trees. March 15th is the deadline. So there's
okay,
plenty
are
of
these
time.
for us to
Oh,
share
yeah.
with the schools?
Yeah.
Right.
And schools in Northampton have participated before, so thanks for reaching out. Information is online.
It's 5th grade, right?
5th grade, yeah.
Does anyone here want to be the liaison to make that happen?
This is in association with Arbor Day.
Yeah. It's the, poster contest that I guess gets chosen before Arbor Day and then,
Yeah, we've moved it up a little bit so that it'll be in time for
Arbor
Arbor Day.
Day. Okay.
So basically that would entail reaching out to the schools.
Yep, the 4 elementary schools and all of their 5th grades.
I can do that.
Okay, great.
And if you know people at other schools outside
Yeah.
Northampton, Participation's
All right.
been
Charter school.
on the low
Has it been on the
side.
low side? Okay.
And I should have brought this, but we made a calendar of all the submissions. That came out pretty nice. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like Montessori school, Jewish school.
Charter school.
Charter schools, yeah, so there's a whole slew. You don't necessarily need to take all that on.
Homeschool.
I would
too.
Yeah.
Homeschool,
that's
right,
true,
yeah.
homeschoolers, yeah.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for our state level update, unless anybody has questions.
I read somewhere about some kind of monitoring of a certain kind of beetle that preys on ash borers, and that you can monitor for the beetle around their nests and see if they have
Yes,
parts
so it's
of the ash borer.
Cerceris fumipennis, which every summer they have a couple week season, and the State Department of Ag runs a program called Wasp Watchers.
That's it, yeah.
And that's a neat
A wasp,
way to,
yeah, not a beetle.
you know, either be
Right.
engaged yourself or engage others. Hang out at ball fields and other sandy locations, watching the ground. Pretty exciting. Dirt
Well, just
roads.
trying to find those holes would be the hard part.
Yeah, well,
They're not so hard to find.
yeah.
Oh.
Once
You
you,
walk barefooted up.
they don't sting
The
people.
holes are pretty prominent.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's a native wasp?
Mhm.
It's kind of a mud dog.
Yeah.
Is it the only kind of solitary wasp that would have holes like that? I mean, if you find holes, you know what is that?
No, there are some ground hornets and things.
Oh.
But I think that they're in the sand.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
There is a training that you take, so you're
Oh.
not just.
that would be interesting,
Yeah.
the training. Do you
So
know?
that'll
anything
come
about
around
that?
in the spring.
Okay.
And we put it in our newsletter, and I can send you the email of the person who's running that to get on the list.
Okay.
So,
Great.
so setbacks. So did everybody have this or see this? So I have copies. If you don't, I mean, communities treat setbacks, as you can see, very differently.
Oh, yeah, here, take this. And when you say that they treat setbacks differently, that implies that there is interpretation of Mass General Law 87. Because,
That's, yeah, the
I mean, can I
communities
only, only infer that the language of the law is not black and white, so that there is room for communities to treat setbacks differently? Because, and forgive me if I'm misspeaking here, but my understanding of our city solicitor's interpretation is that the law makes it clear that when a city plants a tree within 20 feet of the right-of-way, that becomes a public shade tree
Permanently.
in perpetuity.
The problem is
Jack,
we've been trying to get through the legislature for years, the ability to update that, and they will never bring it to
Yeah.
a vote so far.
it's in there now, there's
Is it?
a chance.
There's a chance,
So there's language in there that.
yeah, but that doesn't help us write.
But it does say that section 1 says, or section 7, wherever that is, references section 1, that, these are public shade trees, but you end up with a problem of documentation. A lot of these trees are not well documented. Some cities or towns, don't want to keep working on private property. They'll plant the tree, but then it's up to the property owner. So very few communities retain kind of full rights over the tree. But I don't really know of any that say, hey, we're going to maintain it, we're going to prune it, we're going to, Concord comes close, but.
I mean, is any going so far as, it seems to me like the only way to truly document that this tree is a public tree on private property in perpetuity is to alter the deed.
Yeah, you have to
Is-
record it at the registry of
Is
deeds.
any,
Wow.
is any other community in the entire state doing that, do you know?
Not that I'm aware of.
Probably not, considering the recording fees are $500.
I know, I knew that they
Yeah.
weren't
Help
negligible
the
because I
CGI.
remember having to once. So, that becomes ridiculous.
I wonder who would be the right person perhaps to approach other cities and see what their city solicitors have to say.
I don't think it's so much what the solicitor says. The law is the law. The law
Well-
says that if the tree warden enters into an agreement with a resident to plant a tree within the 20-foot of the right-of-way, it is a protected public shade tree. Hands down, period. It doesn't say anything in the law about giving the tree to the resident 2 years from now. It doesn't say in a year. It doesn't say you can prune the lower branches.
But then if there's a question of contesting whether that tree is a city tree, as Molly said, it comes down to documentation. And short of a record on a deed, the documentation might not stand up in a court of law.
It may not, but
There's a lot of precedent that it's done other ways, and that the law would be changed if we could get the power to do that.
what I've been instructed to go by is what the solicitor is telling me. They are public shade trees, and that's
So
that.
we're in a little bit of a bind because we've planted hundreds of trees on private property.
150.
Yeah, where we have not made that transparent to the owner that in perpetuity that tree is a public shade tree.
Well,
And we're also trying to figure out how to even go forward with this.
in the old documentation, it does say that the tree cannot be pruned and cannot be cut. And if something happens to the tree, the owner has to replace it. That was the old language. That I actually borrowed that language from another community that was in the Tree Wardens and Foresters Handbook.
But you could interpret, it does have, it says something about for 2 years, and so it's
Right.
not clear what the 2 years is
Yeah.
referring to.
Well, the 2 years is referring to that in 2 years' time, the tree is the responsibility of the homeowner.
Right.
However, the tree can't be altered, can't be cut without its protected tree. If they destroy the tree or damage it, they have to replace it. So after 2 years, it makes the homeowner responsible. But that language is not legal because you can't make up your own language for MGL Chapter 87. You have to live by the language, and I think that's where the city solicitor is saying, look, barring any changes to the language, this is what the language says. You can't make a sidebar agreement with someone and alter the language and say that this is now not a public shade tree, it's now a private tree. He said you can't do that.
So I understand that that's how we interpret the language, that's how our solicitor interprets the language. Other towns have faced, I'm assuming have faced this issue.
For like 100 years.
And so how they've dealt with it, and I think as Jay pointed out, there's precedent for it being dealt with in other ways. How does that stand? So I'd be really curious still to find out how other towns are dealing with
Well,
this.
most notably Amherst, right? Because they had a major setback program, and, you know, Alan Snow worked for the state, so he was intimate with MGL 87. What did Amherst do?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like a lot of communities that these trees are planted in the spirit of, you know, you're not going to cut it down, you're going to take care of it. Property owners sign an agreement in a lot of cases saying they will take care of it.
But
But,
if it changes ownership,
I mean, that gets tricky
Yeah.
and
Well,
it
Was that-
hasn't, I
Everyone
don't
turns
know.
the other cheek, no one's suing each other, so. it doesn't
Right,
come up.
I don't know of court cases.
What, you mentioned you'd have to get it on the registry of deeds. Now, on everyone's piece of property is a thing that you don't own, a meter.
That's correct. So you
So how does that, how do you
You'd
do
have to
that?
have, it would almost be like an easement.
right? Like a conservation restriction,
Yeah.
right? Written in.
Written in that states that this tree is public shade tree in perpetuity and the city will maintain the tree and so on and so forth. And every person that does a deed research, when the property changes hands, it goes with it. That's how you would probably do it. I don't know, like again, I don't know of any communities that do it, but that's what Alan is saying, that it would have to be done in order to make sure that the trees were duly noted. You know, for example, there's a good example for me in my mind is the large oak that's on Columbus.
Mhm.
That's actually a city tree.
Uh-huh.
We've always thought it was a private tree, but in reality, because of the way that we interpreted the law before, we interpreted that 3/4 of that tree is on private property.
Well, George Andrikidis did. We didn't.
Well,
Citizens.
No, but I see, you know, that there's a an example of a tree that was planted on private property at one time and now is a public shade tree because of its size.
Yeah, well, of course, library trees were
Similar, yeah, a few of them.
But I'm just blown away that, you know, it just seems like, I get why you're doing what he says, because he's your guy, you know what I mean? But that makes sense. But, you know, we have Brookline, Concord, Worcester. I mean, Worcester, the USDA was all over that, the state was all over that, and they're letting people take care of those trees?
Well,
I mean,
people can
What's
take...
the city, it's not.
People can take care of them? What? In other words, for example, if a person wants to prune a public shade tree, they have to actually send me an application to prune it. So if that tree is a planted public shade tree on private property, if the resident wants to prune it and we can't do it, I can tell them, yeah, you can do it. You have to send me this form and you have to hire a certified arborist, and that's that. So people can take care of them. It's just the law says that the tree is a city tree, a protected public shade tree in perpetuity. Doesn't say any 2-year time frame. Doesn't say that you get to have it after 1 3/4 years or after it grows up, anything.
All right.
So I think it's an interesting point because the law is very outdated and it needs to be changed. Because I don't think there's any way that a community could afford to, especially ones that have an aggressive setback planning program, afford to go to the registry of deeds for $500 times 250.
With the commission's permission, I'm going to reach out to Alan Snow, and just since they planted so many trees set back, and find out what they did. I just feel like we need to continue to look. I mean, we could box ourselves into a corner and have just eliminate our setback planting program, and we don't want to do that. And so I'd like to know how other communities are sort of living with this weird reality and still moving forward with the setback plan.
They didn't ask their attorney.
Yeah.
And they're not suing when something
Never
happens.
ask your attorney.
I know, I'm always telling my kids, ask for forgiveness before permission.
I mean, in a lot of ways, this is sort of like a bonus area for.
You didn't hear that?
Nothing. No, that looks pretty cool. See it on the
Big screen.
Got a lot of trees.
Yeah. we
You
got
guys
one.
got to work. Come
Yeah.
on.
They're not necessarily.
Okay. All right. Thank you for all your work.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like for a lot of communities, this is sort of, they treat it as kind of bonus area to plant. And so I don't know if that's why there's no court cases or because it's so squirrely. I don't know.
What, Molly, what are, is this addressed in the legislation currently before the?
I don't think so.
No.
The main goal of the legislation is to allow DCR to create regulations, but I don't see how that would affect this issue. So it would help other issues.
Couldn't the city just give the homeowner the tree, the volunteers would plant the tree, the city wouldn't be planting it?
Gift.
It's a gift.
Gift can't come from the city, it has to come from private entity. And the tree warden can't be involved. So once I get involved, then that kicks the law in.
Yeah.
Once I'm not involved,
All right.
no city money, private money, so say Northampton had a fund they used, they could just walk up to anybody and say, hey, we want to plant a tree here.
Okay, that may have to, all right, we need to chew on this some more.
However said, one thing I'd like to say though, we talk about regulations and actually trying to stop the removal of a lot of trees and actually keep trees. This is one way, if you think about it. Maybe not in our lifetime, but if this law stays the way it is and we just keep entering the information in this database, this is the written record. So when I go back and someone says, you know, there's a tree in my front yard, can you tell me, can you look it up and see if it was planted by the city or who? The information's there 30 years from now and says, yeah, that was a city tree that was planted and protected in MGL Chapter 87. You cannot remove it without a public shade tree hearing. There's two sides to this, you know. So I mean, I know that it's a cumbersome process, I think, in a sense, but I think there's also a lot of, there is a positive side to it, which is that residents who agreed to have these trees planted just can't decide that next year they want to cut them down.
Okay, so that short-term thing makes a lot of sense to me. 30 years from now, when the property has changed hands 4 times, it does not make as much sense to me. And that's the part that I'm struggling with. Is, I mean, if we're not going to go the full mile of registering this at the Registry of Deeds, then we're inviting lots of really, you know, miserable battles with property owners.
Right.
And that's not economical and a good use of our time and resources and, you know. Okay, so I don't think we're going to figure this out today, but at least we're a little bit closer to knowing what other communities do. And I will reach out to Alan Snow, just if only to hear him say, I never asked the city solicitor. So why would I do that? All right. Can you tell us a little bit about grant opportunities? Did we miss, and we just completely missed our window for this round? Okay. Because we have to do like an intent to apply.
By October 1st.
Oh my God. I always get snagged
But
on that.
having just gotten a grant,
I see, we would.
that's gonna count against you.
Okay, I see.
So
So next year we're
small.
going hard.
so next year.
Put it on our calendar. September
The letter of intent
2018.
is October 1st.
And then November 1st is the deadline.
All right.
And otherwise, it's just sort of probably a lot of opportunities you're aware of. TD Bank, which for some reason Northampton wasn't listed as eligible, but you should be if you want to apply. And other opportunities for a nonprofit partner, Cliff Bar Family Foundation.
I'm sorry, could you say that?
Cliff Bar?
Cliff Bar?
Are you aware of these? or-
You and I have had a conversation before.
So
You
these
know,
are the same
as a
ones.
commission, we've decided we're not going to pursue this
Right,
again
right.
because of the fossil fuel connection.
Right.
Yeah, I think I have a list of ones that she's gone over with me that I can forward to you.
Yeah, and the only other one, which I don't know, maybe would be of interest, the New England Chapter ISA Arbor Day Grant. It's $1,000 for an Arbor Day program.
Oh,
Who provides that?
The New England Chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture,
okay.
which is due in March sometime.
All right.
Yeah, otherwise, not a lot that I'm aware of.
All right, in the couple more minutes we have before we go on to our next agenda item, like 2 minutes. Do you have any questions for us? You gonna be able to stick around for the whole meeting?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good. All right, anything particular
I don't think so.
nagging at you?
No,
No?
nice to see what's going on.
Okay, good. All right, I'm going to move us along then. All right, the planting plan subcommittee minus Sue. Sorry, Sue, we completely forgot. I know that was not intentional, but you missed the meeting before, and then at that meeting we set a meeting for this one. Anyway, we'll get to the next time. We met a second time, and we had a lot of discussions. Would either of you like to summarize how far we got?
Well, I'll start and we can do a group effort. We went through criteria that we had come up with for prioritizing where trees would get planted. And then we took those criteria and looked at them on the map and actually sort of figured out which areas, which geographic areas to focus on that met a bunch of criteria. And what we came up with was the Bridge Street area because it's a major thoroughfare through the city, which was one of our, priority points. It's, let's see, it's an area that pedestrians walk a fair amount. It's near a school. That was another one of our, a community center. School is there.
Got bus stops.
Yep, the bus stop.
Needs traffic calming.
Right. So it had a lot of points in favor of that location. So that's where we decided to focus on for 2018.
Yeah, it's one of them. It's the first
Right,
one we,
right.
and so what we did is we used Tree Keeper and actually looked at the vacant sites. We reduced this to just the vacant sites, and we counted 50. And those were the ones that were just captured by Davy Tree Davy Group. And then we decided that we were going to actually do an on-the-ground walk along Bridge Street to see if we could capture more or different, better. And then we also had a question because we realized there's so much need for the point at which Bridge Street becomes a state highway. that we wanted to understand if we have any room at all to do planting on the tree belt outside of the municipal.
Where does it become?
Grant Avenue.
Yeah, long before you get to the bridge, unfortunately. And boy, is that, with that area beyond it, be lovely if it were treed. So that could be another question we can ask, because I think this question is going to come up over and over again, which is for gateways, how do we have any, can we work with the state to plant in the best gateways that are outside of our jurisdiction?
Setback lines.
Well, we know we have that. We know we have that, but it doesn't always help.
Is it DOT we'd be working with?
Yes.
Not DCR.
I wish you good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because it's going to be a real tough road to hoe, because
Yeah.
they just cut things down, and if they want to widen the road according to the law, they can just cut the trees down, and there's no public shade tree.
Well, they can do that anyway. That's what happened with Forbes, right?
Yeah.
So,
Nothing makes sense.
So I mean, I agree with you. It's kind of, it is a gateway, and people come off the highway and they think, oh, look at Northampton. Well, there's no trees here.
Yeah.
It's wide and it's kind of ugly.
it's ugly.
It would be nice with some trees, but the state really has. I don't even know if DOT even plants trees other than through.
Oh, they plant a lot of trees.
Yeah,
Is there any way
but-
we can?
But through
Wrong
construction,
place.
Right.
construction projects.
Yeah.
So they don't plant trees per se where they identify locations along the highways, they just want to
No,
beautify.
it's tied.
It's always tied to construction jobs, so, but they do have a full-time tree crew. So they actually do remove trees. They have a nice bucket truck and a couple of arborists.
I mean, you can. Communities do work with DOT
Yeah.
to plant on state highways, but it's just making sure.
Do you know examples of communities that have? Maybe we can get some tips from them.
I think Greg Barrington did, but you reach out to
Gotta get
whoever
in the system way.
there's like a person.
Well, then let's start the ball rolling. I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
at
if
least-
it takes years and years to finally get them to approve of us of them planting or us planting on that portion, it'll have been worth it. You know, years fly by in my
Susan,
life.
Molly, what did you say about the process? You reach out.
I can find out who there's an actual person who you'd be talking to ask permission. I don't know if you deal with that person ever.
No.
Find out who that is. It's a real person.
Yeah. So the other area that we worked on in our little subcommittee that we identified was a good potential was the portion of Bridge Road from Meadowbrook, you know, that low-income community that feeds out on Bridge Road, to the middle school. And the reason why we identified that area was, for one thing, environmental justice. It's a school walking route for any kids who are going from Meadowbrook to JFK. Certainly there's traffic calming that needs to happen on Bridge Road. It's a relatively main artery. So that's as far as we got in our meeting. We spent a lot of time figuring out how we were going to kind of zoom into particular work projects, and once we did, the time that we had remaining, we worked on these particular sites, and we have actual street addresses. So eventually, we're putting this in a spreadsheet file. So eventually, it could be an overlay onto my tree keeper for like 2018 potential tree planting sites. So we, the four of us, are going to walk Bridge Street on
The 11th at 11.
November 11th and 11th, and I invite you all.
Bridge Street.
Bridge Street. And I'd invite you all, but I think that becomes a quorum. So we will, first of all, I'd just like to hear your feedback as to the two streets or the portions of the two streets we've identified. And as far as Bridge Street, it's from the bridge, in as much as we can, to Holly Street. I think that's
Yes.
as far as we went.
What street?
Holly,
Holly.
yeah.
What
These
happens
areas-
if you do plant along, like from near Sheldon Field, like what?
You mean on state property or on?
Well,
on the highway?
Like on, so the tree belt is no
That was
longer the
under the
city's?
jurisdiction.
I see, okay. And what happens if you plant?
Well, I don't think you can actually use city money to plant there, first of all. And I don't think you'll be able to, you won't have any control of what happens to the tree.
Yeah. I was just,
The state won't want to, probably won't.
We could establish a hush-hush gorilla arm. I was that for about 5 years. All right, any thoughts, feedback? And just Todd, I have your little voice in my head all the time, so as we move forward on any of this, we bring it to the planning department and have them say, oh, don't bother with that area. It's going to be under construction in the next 18 months or whatever. So we definitely want to make sure that we're talking to the relevant departments so that we're not undermining our work.
Did you say you, so far 50 sites?
50 sites on Bridge Street.
On Bridge Street.
And Bridge Road, another, I don't know, 15 or 20.
Yeah, I wouldn't stop at JFK, I'd go all the way to the roundabout.
Yeah, we picked JFK was
Tree list once you hit the school.
Yeah, okay.
because it used to be a farm field and then they built that.
Okay, noted. Thank you for that feedback. I don't know if you, did anyone go to the mayoral debate? It was hilarious because somebody asked a question about rotaries, and you could see, like, David has this thing about, they're roundabouts, they're not rotaries. It's like he was just, you know, he took the bait. Anyway,
What's the difference?
I'm going to move us along if there's no further comment about this. All right, we will regularly keep you up to date.
Kind of structure.
Finalized tree guide. I think we're there, people. I think we're really there. All right, I sent you all the finalized tree guide, as in I'm not actually welcoming any feedback. Everyone's had plenty of opportunity to give feedback on this. I went through it with a fine-tooth comb in the last couple of days with Alicia. We have a nice cover now. And I'm satisfied with it, and I hope that everybody else, and I just thank everyone's input. Molly especially, Jen and Jay most especially. I think it's a solid document.
And I did the intro.
And Marilyn did the intro page.
When did you send that? Did I miss that?
It was with the agenda.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure if that was the final part, because I got all that other screen.
Yeah, in fact, the name of the document says ready for print.
Yeah.
That's how you can look it up.
I do, on that note, I do have a card that I want to circulate for Alicia. Alicia did like hours and hours of beyond hours of work. And she's actually has mad skills in graphic design that she's pretty under the cover about.
Yeah.
So we would have paid a lot of money to have somebody do what she did. So I just would like to send her a thank you card. So I just want to send this around. And then, the other thing is, I would like the minutes to note that she was the graphic designer because we couldn't get it in the documents. And just circling back, I did call MassDOT about the rotary down there, and I called them to roundabout, whatever it is, twice, and I haven't gotten it. It's just a phone. I've asked them to call me or email me, so I'm working on it.
All right, thank you, Molly. Okay, see you later. Okay. I guess the next question is, how many copies do we want to make of this, and what is our job in circulating it, and who's going to do it? We want to make sure to get into the relevant hands ASAP. I'd be happy to help out with that.
Well, I'm going to have copying placed on oil opening, the copies and buying them.
Yeah.
Marcus printing. So I can make as many copies as you get, as many copies as you like.
Where do we start with, 50, 100?
Let's say probably 100. And I'll ship a copy to the planning department. And so I want the planning board to adjust their zoning regs to show that the trees that we don't want planted I have the list that they have, so they can use this list instead.
Yeah.
Has the mayor seen it yet? Maybe we should start there.
No, that's probably a good idea. I have not sent it to them.
I believe I could be wrong, but I think the planning board is going to have to do two things. One, they're going to have to update their subdivision rules and regs, which they can do themselves. And number two, I do believe that there's an ordinance regarding tree types, and I think the commercial overlay or one of those districts that would take an act of the city council.
Yeah, I did notice in a particular ordinance, there are outdated trees, like ash trees. That we shouldn't have.
Are we gonna post it on our website?
Yeah, you know, that's I never gave you that report, which is that I met with the IT person and Rich at DPW to do a thorough update of the website, and all of that is just in the queue, waiting to go. But another thing you could add to it is that guide, a link to the guide, the PDF.
What's the queue?
Changes in the webpage.
Yeah, there's I guess more pressing IT issues, and we're low in the queue.
Can't update your own websites.
I also think that the tree guide is good. It's good. It looks good. It's very comprehensive. Should Tree Northampton get a couple copies of those
Sure.
too?
Yeah. I mean, everyone's going to have access to PDF. Did I send, you were on the agenda email I sent, so you have a
Yes,
PDF
I didn't have a chance to read the introduction Marilyn wrote.
Yeah.
But, yes, thank you.
But as you're talking,
I think what we would do is probably link to it as well from Tree Northampton and refer people to the electronic version of it.
Yeah.
I think before we put it anywhere out there to be had, I think the mayor needs to give his blessing. I think that would be the first place to start. So
Okay.
I will send an email to him with a copy of it and that, tell him what we'd like to have done with it, and wait for his approval before it goes anywhere. Because in reality, it is a document that you've created.
It's an official document. Yep.
So,
Okay, so get,
Advisory capacity.
give us word when it's got his blessing.
Okay.
Do you want me to send it to him, or are you going to do it?
No, I'll send it to him.
Okay. All right. Going to move us along. If there's nothing further about the tree guide. Fall planting. Got a number of them.
Yep. So there are a few things that are happening. One is the frost is late, so some of the trees that are being dug aren't being delivered because they're waiting for the leaves to go dormant, so we're waiting for some trees. And hopefully there'll be a space between dormancy and when we can still plant. So that's some trees. It's a little disturbing, but there are some trees that I think it was intended that we would plant them as setbacks, but I think those trees will just sit for a while because I don't think the current situation really is amenable to people accepting at this point. And I represented to people something different. You can go back and change it, but it doesn't look very promising. So that will hold up some trees. There's, of course, the big tree planting on 21 trees coming up on Saturday. And last time we did this, there were 30 trees, and we planted them too quickly with too many volunteers, and people were without work. So that's the danger again. So
It's a good danger.
we have to hold back and not let people plant too many trees too quickly. And that's pretty much all the trees. The setback problem is disturbing because, for instance, there were just to give you an example, at 70 Main Street in Florence, there's a bus stop, community health center, so it's the Valley Medical Center, and it needs 2 big trees right by the bus stop, which I've spoken to the property manager. He cut down the dead trees that were in the way. He's expecting 2 trees, but you know, at this point, that doesn't look that hopeful. So likely.
So I think, why not honor them?
Well, I'd have to take the new wording, and I can do that. I'm just saying that the 2 places I've done that so far, it hasn't got, the trees aren't going to happen. So you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people aren't going to. I don't think people will accept this.
Oh, so
They're gonna
you're
put
saying you
gratuity.
tested this out?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What was their reasoning?
Well, they look at it and they go, well, you know, if it's any point, any time I want to make a change, I can't. And they're like, and so say the trees, I can understand. Say it's hit by lightning, it's kind of half dead, and you decide that it's still a public tree, and they don't want it anymore. I wouldn't accept a tree. So I'm a bad salesman if I wouldn't accept one. And that's part of the problem. I've been a really good salesman. I've sold lots of these trees. And at this point, I would warn them against doing it because...
well, they're not going to leave a dangerous tree out in the city.
No, not a matter of dangerous. You'd be surprised how many trees people privately are like, you know, it's not looking right or it's dropping some branches or whatever. People make decisions and prune or remove trees pretty freely.
Or they want a different kind of tree.
Things happen, and they're also
Or a
afraid.
walkway.
And one person very in particular mentioned that when he sells the house, that he'd have to like disclose that, and
Right.
Yeah,
people
yeah. If
They
they
could
could,
break a sale.
they don't want
I know.
a disclosure of that.
yeah.
Right.
And so, you know, it's the trees at the bus stop might be trees that will happen because there's clearly no other use. It's a big institution. Maybe they'll take it to their legal department. I doubt. I don't know what'll happen. It's, you know, and again, as I say, I'm not a good salesperson for this at this point.
I'll add from going around, when I've been along, most people see agreement with the city and they stop in their tracks, even with the 2 years. It really does take selling it.
You know what,
Those setbacks take a lot of talking.
This is going to be where Tree Northampton really comes in as an alternate program. And I saw it when I visited the city of Toronto, that has, you know, it's really held up. It's having a phenomenal tree program, and I met both with the city side of things and this nonprofit organization called LEAF. And the only thing that they did was setbacks, including in backyards too. But it just, they filled a particular niche that the city couldn't as nimbly fill. And so I think that there are funding opportunities for you guys.
Yeah, so I'm not particularly discouraged except in relation to the fall planting.
Right.
And also there are 13 or 20 trees that are all arranged, the stakes in the ground, the people have signed, and you know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's it's just a flaw in the fall plant. It's a flaw in the fall planting, and over the winter we're going to have to rethink the whole program.
So the physical spending money for the trees, for setbacks, at this point, if we wanted to continue, would have to come from Tree Northampton, not from the city.
You know,
That would be a way around it.
That would be a way around it, if the city had nothing to do with the setback.
Mm-hmm.
It means that our door hangers are really pointless. Do you want the free tree? We might as well just pitch those in the recycling, because it's false advertisement, the way we're...
Yeah, and so that does bring one other issue up, which is not to do with fall planting, but as a group or as a town or the mayor, somebody has to decide what to do about all the trees they've planted. Because, again, I've said this before, I think it should go in the record that I think that we need to offer each person that's received a tree to remove the tree and have them sign the new contract. In other words, choice. They can sign the new contract or we can remove the tree. Because those trees were represented by me personally, so I have like a personal interaction with every single one of them. It was a misrepresentation.
Yeah.
And
No fault of your
so I
own.
can't walk around the street
Yeah.
and go, oh, hi, how's your tree?
Yeah. Oh,
You
you
know,
mean our tree?
You know, oh, you mean, it's not your, you know, so, and it's not that hard to remove them.
At this point.
At this point, exactly, that's why I think we have to, and we're not gonna review it this fall, but by next spring, I think we have to have contacted everyone, told them that it's different than what we had said, and that we were willing to rectify it by removing the tree.
Yep.
Unless there's another solution, which I'm happy.
It doesn't sound like the city's gonna bend on this.
It doesn't seem.
So I think that we need to forge ahead with that plan, and pretty much freeze our city-sponsored setback planting.
Yeah.
Get a big push to the state government to get this bill.
But this bill, it sounds like won't address it.
Yeah, apparently not.
It will, because it gives the DCR the ability to change the wording.
Ah,
But of
Well,
subsequent
not of the law.
regulations, of regulations. So I don't know enough about how that would impact.
And just for clarification, the reason why Tree Northampton would be more suitable than the city would be because if Tree Northampton did it,
it's not a public shade tree.
it would not be, it would be privately owned.
It's a donation from a nonprofit to a private individual.
Person, okay.
And the tree warden, who's
Not involved.
bound with the Massachusetts law,
Yeah.
wouldn't be involved.
Yeah.
We could really work this to our advantage
Yeah.
in Tree Northampton. We could say, you know, you could do a crowdsourcing campaign and easily raise a ton of money by saying, we've got this great setback planting plan, but it's impossible to execute it in partnership with the city. For various legal reasons, it's impossible to partner with the city of Northampton to do it, so we need to fundraise independently. Anyway, we can have that conversation another time, but I think there's a lot of promise for.
But we'd have to go pick them up on our own and all that, right?
Oh, yeah, everything. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I
How's it
mean,
been?
Rich
Do
wouldn't
you
be
pick them
allowed
all
to.
up now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do everything.
We wouldn't have
Yeah.
to plant as big, I wouldn't be able to manage without the city, we wouldn't be able to manage the scale, the size
Yeah.
of trees.
Right.
Oh, for setbacks?
it's possible, it's possible in that they're on front lawns to plant, 4-foot tall trees too. I mean, that we could cart around, or we could find a yard somewhere where we could collect some. You have to have a place to put this, and that's part of it. You have to have a place to operate.
Heal
All right. I think this is for further exploration, so I'm going to put it on the next agenda meeting to discuss this
Fairgrounds.
further.
I bet we can ruin that.
Okay, so you mentioned the November 4th planting, you're all set with volunteers, and then November 18th Forbes Library, how's volunteers going for that?
They are trickling in for that as well. I'm diverting people from November 4th who had wanted to help. We again, don't want to have mobs of people coming in each shift and having to cancel, and I think it would be a better experience as well. For having the smaller group. I think we have enough volunteers to handle it.
I do, I'm sure Rich has thought about this, and we all should, is that the trees that are going into forbs, one of them is really big and the others are fairly large balls, so we're going to have to be very closely coordinated with DPW in order to be helpful. Right, Rich?
I would assume you'd want us there.
But I mean, I don't know that volunteers could plant them.
No, they may not have planted them, but they can actually help. There's plenty of
Right.
work to do.
Are you going to actually use a vehicle to dig the hole? Like,
Might have to because of the locations. I want to go with Rob and kind of walk around out there.
okay.
Right, okay, that's all I'm saying, is that the locations and the size of the tree are going to make it so that volunteers can participate, but there's going to have to be some.
We will need to coordinate closely with Rich to see what role volunteers really can play.
Yeah.
Because it's not good to schedule volunteers and not have something for them to do. They feel negative about the project when that happens.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, the American chestnut tree plantings. It sounds like we are thumbs up with Childs Park, Lake Fitzgerald, and Bridge Street Cemetery. I've talked to Rich about 8 going in Bridge Street Cemetery now since the Gazette location is out, which frankly is lovely because, you know, it's the oldest, most historic site in the city, and they have room to grow, and it's a park-like environment. So I'm thrilled about a lot of trees there. Do you know about this? We got a resident in Northampton acquired some chestnut seeds, and my daughter propagated them, and they're little tiny woods now, and we want to put them in the
Oh, nice.
from the American Chestnut Foundation. So I'm working directly with Rich for Bridge Street Cemetery. And Todd, are you getting your questions answered about Lake Fitzgerald? Do you need a
Yeah, we're gonna walk it, if I can find some time on Friday, to see where the appropriate sites will be between the possible dam site or some of the meadows that are
Okay.
contained in the.
And remind me how many you're taking? 4?
4.
Okay. And Jay?
I've got the stakes out at Childs Park.
Oh, nice. Okay. And
So
you're
all they have to
taking
do
4?
is plant them, and, yeah.
Okay.
And then staff there is off for the winter, but we have permission to go in and do that.
Great. Okay. So we're all just coordinating directly with you? Okay.
Just to get materials, really.
Okay.
Wait, do we have a planting date?
I think it's entirely up to whenever anyone can do
Yeah,
it.
so when you two are ready, you know, I'm the person that actually has the trees. So be in touch with me.
Okay, I'm ready. Does anyone want to help?
I'd like to help you at Child's Park.
Yeah, we have to coordinate my time and your time.
They're teeny tiny, it won't take a lot of time.
No.
Probably don't need a lot of people.
All right.
Wasn't there some sensitivity around time because Child's Park is closing?
We got the okay to do the planting ourselves. I
Okay.
just had to get in there and pick out sites with the guy who was in charge. I did that last week.
Pretty little wire enclosures around each tree, right?
Yeah, I told him that would be happening.
Okay.
Does that, you put a bottom on the wire?
I think you buried
A
it.
couple inches in the ground with the things poking out.
Okay, so no one's gonna come under it and.
That's the
Get to it.
idea.
That's the idea.
Keeps
Yeah.
animals from
I think the
taking-
document that I sent you has pretty good instructions.
Okay.
So just take a look at that.
And certainly, Jay, if you want people, let me know. I can reach out to people. Personally, it's my neighborhood, and I might be able to.
Well, if you want to help, we can work that in.
Child's Park's your neighborhood? Did you say?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you lived over in my neighborhood.
No, I'm on Stoddard.
Oh, it's Sue. It's Susan.
Susan is in your neighborhood.
Susan
Roy. Yeah,
Oh, right. Oh, you're on Stoddard.
Team
Oh,
Stoddard.
Team Stoddard. Jen knows my
I
neighborhood.
do know Team Stoddard. They're rocking over on that street.
Uh-huh. Good.
It's a great street.
It is. I love working.
What about the tree planting for Ned? Word on that?
Any word on that?
I'm gonna
Okay.
have to have a conversation with the mayor myself.
Oh, okay. We're doing that?
I think you have to. I don't think that it would be appropriate not to.
Okay.
So,
All right. So should I hold off contacting?
I would.
Oh, God, I haven't already.
Yep.
Okie dokie. Tree Northampton, anything other than what we've already spoken about?
Thank you, Lily, for signing up. Appreciate that. It's great. And Jen and Jay, if you have any time Saturday between 9 and, oh, you do? Okay, that's
You mean
great.
This Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yeah, I just assumed I was going to be there
You're
for
on
that
there.
time.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
because the leadership is the
Yeah.
most important part. That's great. Wow, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
And Jay, if you wanted to come by, again, we'll be having volunteers planting on South Street again. And the more supervision, the better, because there's always little questions that come up, and want to make sure to keep them slow and doing a good job with the tree planting. So you're welcome to come. I think we have people who haven't planted trees before, a lot of the people who've signed up. Some of them are people who came through the Tree Northampton website. I didn't discriminate. I said we have a combined volunteer list that includes people from the survey who checked off, want to plant a tree, people who've come through the website, people who had been helping Rob for a few years, people who participated in other activities, all the South Street people who signed up last time. So we can do.
Sorry I can't join you. I'll be on an old growth forest walk in Long with Bob Leonard.
Fascinating.
Hi, Lily.
No, this is not where I
It is.
You've been waiting.
Stay. So we'll be having a meeting right after November 4th, and then let's see. It really is just tree planting right now, and Alicia's been working hard on the guide, and that's about it.
Oh, one thing you might want to mention is that there was an outreach from someone who is interested in volunteering her photographic skills, right? She reached both you guys and me, and I think we
want to connect her with Alicia, because Alicia does all the graphics at Tree Northampton, and there are we'll have to see what exactly she's willing to do. I mean, a lot of the work is documenting the trees. Rich mentioned, referred earlier to this idea that all the sites get photographed before plantings. All of that is required by DigSafe. After the trees are planted, we have a gallery on the website. So if she's willing to do that, so I reached out to Alicia, and we'll figure out a way to word to her exactly what it is we have to do. That reminds me, I'll invite her to, if she wants to come document volunteers this Saturday.
Alicia asked her to.
Alicia did? Okay, because I didn't pass it on to Alicia. I wasn't sure if I did back to Alicia, because I was away.
Work with her, yeah.
Oh, it's already happening.
It's happening. I didn't see that she accepted. I just saw the email.
Yeah, I got the impression she wanted something more kind of exciting than what I'm talking about, which is methodical. You got to document and keep track. It's filing more than photography. But without the documentation of a photograph, you know, that's the important part. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, I did want to also mention that the people who are at Hospital Hill are just plugging away. They've done so much work. It's really tremendous. Village Hill?
Yeah, what are they doing particularly?
So if I could break it, because I've been up there with them 6 or 8 times, sessions where they have self-organized people to remove volcano mulching. Rich took us up there the first time to show us exactly what we should and shouldn't do up there, and then they've been out there. It's very hard work, because these are mulch piles are totally grown with adventitious roots. I mean, it's like, you know, so it's surgery.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to cut in and mention this was that they're a great group, and it's been really good doing it. We've done 74 trees. We've probably got another 174 to do. I don't know, it's endless. But Rich has mentioned to me that he would like to go to King Street and do some of the same work. That cannot be done without coordination with the DPW because of the police detail, because people will be hit by cars eventually. Traffic problems.
Even if they're not on the street?
No, you have to have, you gotta have a detail. Because in order to get rid of the mulch, you have to put it somewhere. And we have to pick it up. So if they're cleaning it up, we might as well just be there.
Oh, you can't just spread it out?
No.
Well, so anyway, if we could find enough people to do it, and if Rich hits DPW crew, which he hopes there might be enough time before the ground freezes, we might go after King Street. I guess otherwise it'll be in the spring or something.
And this group, or at least key members from this group, would, you know, if we can engage them, they're bringing in all this experience they have now with liberating these trees. I will mention also the leader of it, Molly, I'm sorry, it's not Molly, it's Mindy. She has been talking to someone, to the Gazette, about how the inspiring story, and she and others have become volcano mulch
warriors.
They are, and they're politicized about it. They're seeing around our town.
Well, that is a story. I think that is a really great story for the Gazette.
So the Gazette said they're going to be publishing it soon.
They have taken wonderful pictures of their work.
Oh, that's so great.
And written about it. They have taken very, very wonderful pictures, because you know, the advantageous root systems are sometimes very clear, and they photograph that, and then they photograph before and after, and they've done a really
They have a lot of
great
pictures
job.
of girdling happening.
Yeah.
A lot of girdling going on, and they've
Sure.
Okay.
That's great.
So you'll probably see something, and they really appreciate the help Rich gave, and Rob as a commissioner, and Tree Northampton. They understand the whole kind of parts different people play in helping them be able to do that.
Yeah, and they wear the Tree Northampton, Tree Volunteer, Northampton Volunteer vests, so they know that they're not freelancers.
That reminds me, I just want to go back one agenda item very quickly, and then I need to move us forward because I actually want to get out of here a little early. I have a date at 6. That I should release a press release about the upcoming plantings, especially because in my op-ed piece in the Gazette, I told the public that I would let them know when we're going to be planting the forest trees. So I'm going to put something out. I would love to email with you, Sue, about details around how many volunteers have signed up so far, who they should contact. So I would like to get this out in the next day or two.
Sure, I'm around.
Wait a minute. Do we even have time?
No, not for the Saturday.
But Saturday, it sounds like we're set. So
We have volunteers, yeah.
We have
wanna
volunteers, so
invite-
what I can do is I can release it on Monday, and I can say, we did this over the weekend, and we're doing this the next weekend.
The
And
library.
Yeah, the library.
Well, libraries move now.
We're doing it on the 18th, sorry.
Okay.
So that gives, that's plenty of time. I just feel that if I offered to the public that I would alert them about the planting, that we should make good on that. So I'm going to contact you.
Send that to him.
Yeah, of course.
He is aware of it already. He is planning on being in both plantings.
Oh, is he?
Yep.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we have about 20 people, 2 shifts,
Okay.
10 each.
And then I'm thrilled to hear about the volcano mulch warriors. I think that's awesome, and I do think that it can be replicated and more people can be added on. You know, this is Paige Bridgens. This has been like one of her pet peeves forever. Like, she's
Well,
lived in this.
she did join us up there
Did she?
once. Yeah,
Well, it's just going to be, these people are activated, and they are going to lean on the landscapers that are doing this.
They are leaning on the
And
landscape.
that is the fabulous thing.
I think the Gazette article
Is-
it was supposed to be published, but I think that's where they're going with it. I got the impression they're trying to contact different
Good.
contractors. So
Yes.
I think they're gonna
Yes.
move, they're gonna go that way
There
with
is
it.
education to be
This is
had.
so good.
It's less about the ordinary citizens
Yeah.
and more
Oh,
about
yeah.
the
When
ridiculous.
they have,
I will say I was there when one of the reporters was there, and I could not tell where the reporter was going with the article, what direction they were going. It might have been
maybe-
about
maybe-
Buzzkill, it might have been
Then, well,
about
hold on.
volcanoes.
You can have control if you send out a press release. You have more control.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe.
you know, if you want to shape the whole education piece of this, then I would definitely send out a press release, especially to, at least to the journalist who's working on this particular issue. Because it would be mortifying if it like went in the opposite
Yeah.
direction that we
Yeah,
want.
The other place that
It's a
could
warning, yeah.
be sent is the citizen forester.
Oh, wow.
That would be a great article for that
And I would love
publication.
to participate.
Great.
Mulch therapy.
Yeah,
They've written things, they've
Oh, mulch
photographed.
therapy?
Yeah.
yeah, nice.
I haven't been in town, but I take it has not come out yet.
No.
No, I wouldn't
And
notice.
do you have a copy, Sue, of the door knocker that we made? Or, I don't know if it's a door knocker, but it's the volcano mulching one.
No, I don't.
Well, I'll forward that to you. Do you have a hard copy of it? It's so great. I mean, it's a really good one. Because you can grab a lot of the language we already have about it. And you could even, if I can find the electronic copy, you can send it to the journalist. Okay, so I'm just going to put a note for myself.
One of the volunteers up there wrote a really nicely articulated version of what this is all about.
And sent it to the reporter.
Oh, good, okay.
So,
All right, I still say cover your bases, you know? I mean, if there's any doubt that they may not get it right, what's the harm?
Okay, I'll talk to you about that.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other business items submitted by the mayor, by the chair, not the mayor, that was not a Freudian slip. I have no intention of
I have one very quick acknowledgement and thank you for you and Rich for a great presentation at the Western Mass Tree Wardens meeting. Very well received. The board raved about it.
Oh,
The
nice.
members who were there, and want to have you in the future at your conference perhaps. So
Nice.
yeah,
Take
so
it on
thank
the
you.
road.
'Cause I know a lot of work
Yeah,
went
yeah.
into that.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was a good exercise in summing up all the road we traveled, how far we've
Yeah.
come.
I don't think we sometimes, we don't think about it, I don't think about it often. I think
Yeah.
that was quite a reminder,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I've done a lot.
wonderful.
Success.
Thank you, Molly. Any other business?
I did review the traffic calming manual from 2008. I think there's a lot of places where we can insert some language regarding public shade trees as a traffic calming tool and the lack of them as a criteria. So I can formalize my comments and send it around to everyone for the next meeting.
And just FYI, I did not put that on the agenda this week because Todd had a horrible case of the flu. So I gave him a free pass. And encouraged him to get a flu shot. Okay, I think we're ready to do wrap up.
Okay, and speaking of having accomplished a lot, this is our 50th meeting
Wow.
in 2.5 years. Okay, so Rich, let's see, November 13th hearing for the elm tree removal at Roberts Meadow.
Yes.
Include the link to the tree guide for the web updates. Send the tree guide to the mayor. Continue working on the Bridge Street Cemetery chestnut tree planting, and contact the mayor about tree planting for May. Lily, contact us.
Sorry, we didn't talk about it, but you should probably contact the mayor for how we're dealing with the previously planted trees.
I'm actually waiting for Alan Sewell to get back to me on his thoughts on how to actually register, what process we could to actually, if we want to keep the setback plan per its existing form, how would we actually register the trees, record them?
You know, although I think what you've heard from the commission is that we are prepared to suspend this altogether
This
because,
is true, you may be ready to suspend it, but if the mayor tells me he wants to move forward with the setback plan program, then, so I like to have all my bases covered.
okay, but I do think you should deliver the sentiment that we have, that we're not enthusiastic about the setback planning plan as it now looks, and that we have already experienced pushback from private homeowners about it. It's information you should have.
Let's see, so Lily, contact Alan Snow about the setback planting and press release for the,
I'm not doing that. I'm not contacting Alan Snow.
oh, you know,
Oh, Alan Snow, I'm sorry, I thought you meant Sewell. Okay, Alan Sewell. Yes, I'm contacting Alan Snow.
press release for the fall tree planting, regarding Saturdays, planting, and the upcoming fall planting on 18th. Todd, ongoing work for the Fitzgerald Lake chestnut tree planting, formalize the wording for the traffic calming. Jay, Charles Park chestnut tree planting, which I'll help you with. And I'm gonna get this material to the Northampton schools for the 5th grade Arbor Day poster contest. Let's see, Molly's gonna work on the EAB trap monitoring, and then Rob tree planting on 4th with Tree Northampton. And Jen's gonna mail that card to Alicia.
Okay,
I will.
all right. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Yes, we're ready.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.